All right, where was I? I'm getting off topic now.
Well, we're probably, what, 93, 92?
Well, we're still with Guns, because Guns ended in like summer of 93. So, what was some other stuff there? I'm trying to remember. I don't know. We'll get to it later. So, Guns ends in like, I want to say July of 93. And then I get a call from REO Speedwagon, and I want to say August. They need a guitar tech to take care of Kevin Cronin, the singer who plays guitar, and then Bruce Hall, the bass player, right? And I already know a couple of these guys. My memory's escaping me here, so bear with me. I knew the monitor guy, Neil Schaefer, from years ago when he was with Megadeth. And I knew Brian, the stage left guitar tech, and I think that's it. But at any rate, I met Flash was the LD, who was a wonderful person. We still stay in touch to this day. Brian Ranks, that was his name. He was Dave? Is it Dave Amato? It's one of the Amatos that plays guitar. And what a great little tour that was. And the best part is that we were touring with Cheap Trick, and I've always loved Cheap Trick, right? And I'd never gotten to see him before, right? And for me, it was great because they still had like two of what I consider to be legendary, like Roadies, right? They're backline guys. So, and I'm sorry, I don't know his real name, but Chuckles, the drum tech, who used to work with Peter Criss with Kiss way back when, and then went to work for Bun E with Cheap Trick. And then Dave Wilmer, Rick's guitar tech, who'd been with him for forever, right? And I knew of these guys, and again, like heroes to me, and they were still there, right? And it's like Bunny Carlos, in lieu of a drum monitor, okay? And if you don't know what that is, that's basically a speaker cabinet that you have behind you that you can hear like the vocals through, or the bass guitar through, or your kick drum through, or whatever, so it's easier for you to hear everything to play, right? Bun didn't have that. Bun had a big-ass air conditioner behind him, okay? In lieu of a drum monitor. And then what he would hear is he had one of Rick's little single 12 combo amps, I forget what it was, or whatever, was set up there, and he would hear Rick's guitar, and that's it. And I mean, just sounded amazing, right? I mean, this is like, my God, he's like, set up on the floor, no riser, kind of like John Bonham with Zeppelin, like, fuck that, I'm on the floor. And then just like watching Dave Wilmer take care of Rick and his myriad of guitars, I mean, everything was still there, the Rick guitar double neck, and the 5-neck, and the Mandocello, and like all, and he was touring, at that time he was touring with a 58 Explorer, a 58 V, a 59 Les Paul, a 60 Les Paul. I mean, right there's what, like at that time, that was like $1 million in guitars, on top of the stuff that's irreplaceable, right? Like his 5-neck, and which I guess I shouldn't say because that shit got damaged when a stage collapsed not too long ago. So whatever. But at the time, so for me, it was incredible. I'd be up there tuning for REO, but watching Cheap Trick every night, right? And the REO guys were really nice, Kevin and Bruce, and I'm really well taken care of. Can't say a bad thing about them, And it was great because every time we would go into like percentage, right, which means you'd like sell out a venue and like go over that, right? Everybody used to get $100. And like I forget how many shows we did, but in that short run I did in August and September, I think I came home with an extra $1,700. It was like 17 shows that everybody got $100 for. So like I said, took great care of everybody, and nice guys. And I went on to do a bunch of gigs, like one-off gigs with them through the end of 93 and into 94. So yeah, really nice guys. And then the very end of 93, the management company for Guns N' Roses, they were called BFD. They had this band from Ireland that came over called My Little Funhouse, and they were supporting Vince Neil's solo thing. I want to say it was Vince, right? Yeah, it was Vince, because Steve Stevens was playing guitar with Vince, so it was Vince Neil's solo thing, which was doing clubs or whatever, right? So they got in a jam, and they were on the East Coast, so I went out and I filled in, I want to say like 6 gigs with them or whatever. But again, great group of people, nice people, kids in a van, here you go. And I guess that completed 93. Well, it didn't, because at the end of 93, in December, I get a call from this guy by the name of John Dawk Stillwell from Ithaca, New York, actually Freeville. And Dawk is unfortunately another guy that's passed. But Dawk is like kind of like a electronic mad scientist. Like he way back when, and like that when Elf was playing and Ronnie James Dio was playing in Elf, they were a Cortland band. So in like the late 60s and then early 70s. And then he would mod and take care of their amplifiers. He'd work on their guitars. He was like one of those guys like that would, you know, him along with like Red Rhodes on the West Coast and, you know, some other guys. They were like some of the first guys to do it that I know of in the U.S. I'm sure somebody would be like, oh, so-and-so did it here, but whatever.
Is that a Cortland?
He was out of actually Freeville, New York. Ithaca, lived in a trailer up. You remember where Tweetman's was? Probably not, but anyway, you'd like turn right on Ringwood Road by Tweetman's, and he lived up in a trailer there. But and so he worked with this band Manowar out of Auburn, New York, since like 1980, right? Joey DeMeo and Eric Adams. So they were putting together this massive Backline, okay? They had these custom cabinets made at a company called Bag End. And so they were 418 cabinets, 415 cabinets, and 912s. And they were all of the same size, okay? And they were making what at the time they called the biggest backline in the world, all right? Because they're very much into playing loud, right? I think they might still hold the world record for the loudest band ever. I mean, I don't think Guinness has it as a category anymore because, like, you know, you can't now with all the laws and you know, you can't play over a certain volume, or I don't know. But back then, that was their claim to fame, loudest band in the world. So it was in Auburn, which is close. If I said Cortland before, I'm sorry, but yeah, they were in Auburn. So I end up in like go up and I start helping Dawk, and I'm like putting all these cabinets together and putting speakers in them, and that goes into January, and they're getting ready to do a European tour, and at that time they're super popular in Germany and Europe and whatnot. Like they could barely get arrested in the US, but over there they're selling out arenas, all right? Like in Germany, we were going back on what would have been days off and playing cities again because there was just this demand. So I got that gig as the drum tech, and I did that for like 10 weeks in Europe.
Now, who's this with?
A band called Manowar.
Manowar. Okay,
Yep,
gotcha.
yep. There was a guy that worked with him, Pete Retzi, or no, not Pete Retzi, that was the guy in Rush. I can't remember his last name. But there's a Black Sabbath song on the Born Again album with that Glenn Hughes, or not Glenn Hughes, but what was the singer in Purple? Can't remember his name. God, this sucks, Alan.
No.
Not Coverdale, was before Coverdale.
Oh, yeah. The original?
Yeah. Well, there was Mark 1, he was Mark 2.
Rogers?
No, that's Bad Company.
No, yeah.
Ian Gillan.
Ian Gillan.
Sorry, Ian. That's horrible of me. I should know this verbatim. So Ian Gillan's singing in Black Sabbath, the album after Ronnie left, right? And there's a song, I can't remember the name of it, but he talks about Pete is by him in the front seat at the wheel. It's like they're like crashing a Rolls Royce. And Pete was there with like working for Sabbath when they recorded it all. So it was all about Pete, which I don't know how this ties in, but I had to point that out. So we go to Europe, we start this tour, we do the tour, I come home. I kind of hung out there for a little bit, and then Gilby calls me up. He's done a solo record. He's going to start a tour. So go out. We start the solo tour with Gilby. I do that tour. That goes through the end of the year. I go back out on that at the beginning of the year, and it ends in like well, I know it ended in February because I drove home from Boston with the merch guy to Elmira to just get home for my son's birthday, because his birthday's on February 3rd. So it was his, that would have been 95, his second birthday? Second birthday, yeah, because he was born in 93. So it was his second birthday. So we got home from that, and then then the snake pit thing started up, right? So did snake pit in most of 95. Slash the snake pit, sorry, slash the snake pit. And that band consisted of Eric, can't remember his last name, on vocals, Gilby playing guitar, Slash, of course, playing guitar, James Lamenzo playing bass. He played in White Lion and Zach Wild's band after he left Ozzy. I can't remember the name of it. And then the drummer was Brian Tishy. And we did that all the way through. We actually ended doing Monsters of Rock at Donington in 95. And then I get a call from Bill Ramey to come work for Billy Corrigan on Smashing Pumpkins. Now this is when Infinite Sadness is just getting ready to come out. So I go in and we do some warm-up shows, and Billy he's a tough character. You know, he's probably the most articulate guitar player I've ever teched for. Like when he fingers, it's the same every time. It's really easy because, you know, some guys like either cheat up on the frets or cheat back or whatever, and Billy is spot on every time. And he's got perfect pitch, right? So like you got to have your shit tight because he'll hear it. Nobody else will, but he will. So it was a lot of hard work.
And yours guitar tech.
Yeah, it's a lot of hard work, but it's working out. And then they do this up through Saturday Night Live. We do Saturday Night Live. That was the first time I did Saturday Night Live. And then Bill is actually not doing those shows because he's out with this band called Garbage, right? Because he had started the Garbage thing. So he's like, look, I kind of need you to come out on this. I'm production manager, but I'm also mixing monitors, but I need somebody to build my monitor rig because like I got other stuff to do, right? And then also during the show, we've only got one guitar tech out here and two guitar players. Could you take care of the one guitar player during the show, Steve Marker? I'm like, yeah, sure, I can do that, right? And this was like the guys that were on the Pumpkins crew. Val Jean was James Eha's tech, and unfortunately Val's departed as well. And then Timmy Doyle was Chamberlain's drum tech, right? And then I was taking care of Darcy and Billy. So I did Saturday Night Live, and then the next night I think we played Irving Plaza in New York. I went right from one gig to another and finished up 95. They did club shows in the US, and then we went to Europe and we did some Europe stuff, and then came home, and I was supposed to go do Pumpkins in 96. And I went, you know what? I'm gonna stay with Garbage. I like these people. Granted, Pumpkins is way more money, but you know what? I'm gonna be a lot happier here because if I do Pumpkins, I'm gonna be stressed all the effing time, right? Because it's I mean, you're stringing. I think it was what? Billy had 9 guitars and Darcy had 2 basses, so you're stringing 11 instruments a day.
Wow.
Which there's plenty of guys out there to be like, oh, I fucking strung 20, you're a pussy, whatever. It's a lot for me, all right? So I went sorry, which pissed a lot of people off, and I stayed with Garbage and did all of 96, and we actually finished 96 with the Pumpkins because we were supporting Pumpkins. Like we were supporting them earlier in the year, and unfortunately Jonathan Melvoin passed away in New York before the Garden show, and so their tour went on hold, right? And then we finished up those dates in the US with them at the end of 96, right? And Billy's guitar tech at the time was this guy Struan, who had worked with Lou Reed for a long time. Well, whatever, he was done, he was leaving. So Bill came to me and he's like, look, we've got like 7 weeks of makeup shows in January and February. would you come out and do it? And I was like, you know, 7 weeks, I'll come back and do that. So I came back and I did those like last 7 weeks of shows, taking care of Billy and Darcy. And then did the Grammys with them and Conan O'Brien, and I hadn't done any of those either. And so now we're into 97, all right? And 97 would be, it was a little